So last week I mentioned how it is very likely that we are going to experience more selling pressure for Tesla as we have more things unfold in the market. Now, to be clear, guys, I am not a Tesla bear, and in fact I'm actually long-term bullish on Tesla. However, there are a couple of things that we have to address that are currently going on. For example, this week alone we have Fed Chairman Jerome Powell speaking twice this week, and so this could serve itself as two separate negative catalyst events that could influence this market this week. And the reason being is simply because we know that recently Jerome Powell has been sticking with a very hawkish tone. We know that, the Federal Reserve paused, and back when they did pause and make that rate decision, they mentioned that, hey, they were going to stay very data dependent and see what happens. However, recently, when Jerome Powell testified in front of the House panel and the Senate panel, he's been much more aggressively hawkish. And so this can serve itself as, just concerning for the overall market, because we want to pay attention to what Jerome Powell is going to say. Is he going to switch his stance, or is he going to go ahead and double down saying, hey, we have to, hike rates even further higher? And so that's obviously a big concern for the market. But to add another layer on top of that, we've had 4 different analysts downgrade Tesla in this current week alone.
Hey pal, you just blowing from stupid town?
Now, in my opinion, you should always take with a grain of salt of what the analysts actually say and never put too much weight on what they actually publish, simply because they can be dead wrong. And oftentimes, in the case of Tesla, analysts have been completely wrong a multitude of different times in the past. Let alone, there have been research papers out there that have been published that show that, there could be a conflict of interest with certain analysts who are working with certain organizations that could lead them to having a more pessimistic view of a company or a more optimistic view of a company that isn't necessarily true. And then, of course, you also have the herd mentality, where if you have just a couple of analysts saying one thing, well, all the other analysts are going to agree to that general consensus, simply because you don't want to be that one analyst that stands out and then ends up being wrong. Why? Because you could end up getting fired, right? Of course, if the reverse happens, if you're the one analyst saying, completely a different story from all the other ones and you're right, well, then you're praised as a hero. However, the risk is sometimes too great, where it often causes, all analysts to just agree on the same thing, which is my point of, what we're currently seeing, where we're seeing a lot of analysts downgrade Tesla. And of course, unfortunately, this does, provide a little bit of pain for a stock if you have multitude of analysts downgrading it. However, sometimes the numbers that the analysts actually put out there are sometimes seen as a blessing, as they could provide a massive opportunity when there's a big discrepancy between price and value that you could take advantage of. But we also have to be aware of the massive data coming out this week, which is the PCE report, which is basically the inflationary gauge that the Federal Reserve prefers to actually look at when it comes to measuring how good or bad inflation is. So if we have, just bad data, well, that could, cause more selling pressure and cause Tesla stock to capitulate a bit further, which would obviously be bad. However, if we do have good data, well, this is basically going to diminish the hawkish tone that we've been getting from Jerome Powell and the rest of the FOMC members, and kind of, get us back to a more dovish and bullish sentiment in the overall market, which of course would reflect really strongly for stocks like Tesla. Now, looking at things from a technical standpoint, one of the things I've addressed in previous videos is the fact that we have a lot of volume relative to price around the $206 area, and typically when we have a lot of volume relative to price, which is different from volume relative to time, well, that means that there's going to be a lot of battling between the bid and the ask, and this forms areas of supports and resistances, which we could see in the past by this dotted red line over here. So this could honestly cause a little bit of a support area for Tesla, and so that's an area that we're going to want to pay attention to see if Tesla reaches to 206, and then from there see if there's going to be continuing selling pressures going on, or if we're going to confirm a little bit of a bounce around that area, and that could honestly be a good opportunity to add more shares of Tesla. So if you're a long-term investor for Tesla and you're seeing a little bit of the selling going on, well, you might actually be salivating and rubbing your hands together, because this could finally provide an opportunity to dollar cost average and dump more capital into Tesla. However, if you're a short-term trader, then maybe you're kind of shook on what you should do, right? Because obviously trading and investing are two separate vehicles and you don't want to mix them up together. So of course, for my long-term portfolio in which I have, exposure to Tesla, I'm really not doing much. In fact, I'm just sitting on the sidelines and waiting to see if we actually get that dip and that confirmation of, the bounce, so I could go ahead and add more shares to my long-term portfolio. But, from my trading, brokerage account, I'm obviously not really doing much with Tesla. I could short Tesla. However, I always, have said a multitude of different times in the channel recently, actually, that I'm actually worried to short Tesla at these levels simply because Tesla is one of the most shorted mega caps out there, and this could cause a little bit of a short squeeze, especially when we could have, positive catalyst news come out from Tesla at any moment, especially when, we have companies left and right coming out of the shadows joining the Tesla supercharging network. Right? And so obviously that's something that I want to be avoiding right now, which is being a short seller for my trading account for Tesla, because another positive catalyst event that could come out is the Cybertruck productions, finally being announced. All right, we've been getting a lot of snippets of Elon Musk teasing us on Twitter with Cybertruck sightings. However, we don't have, in fact, a realistic date on what's actually going to happen with the production for the Cybertrucks, but that could come out at any moment. So, for me personally, my short-term trading account, I'm still taking a long bullish position where basically I'm not touching Tesla on its way down, but I'll be waiting to trade Tesla even in the short term on its way up. Now, just as I said that you should always take what the analysts say with a grain of salt, you should also take what even I say with a grain of salt as well, as you should never trade or invest based on anyone else's opinion, and only trade or invest in what you see value in. Now, for me personally, I do see value in Tesla, so if we do see Tesla fall down, well, my long-term portfolio, once I see confirmation of an uptrend, I will be buying more shares, and of course, even in my trading account, I'm going to be taking advantage of a bounce if it does happen. Of course, we have to stay very data dependent, which is why I often preach that you want to have a holistic approach. You don't just want to rely on technical analysis or, what's going on in the overall economy. You want to look at everything, including the fundamentals, catalyst events, and also take an event, what, the analysts are saying and talk about, monetary policy and fiscal policy. You want to look at everything, which is a point I try to, really bring out there when it comes to the Push and Profit private group, which, by the way, if you want to join the Push and Profit private group, make sure to check out the first link in the description below. There is a 10% off coupon code. We haven't had a sale in a while, so definitely take advantage of that coupon code. And with that being said, guys, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing as well. And also, before you go, make sure to watch this next video right over here where I go ahead and break down volume profile in a much deeper